Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Royal Blue Podcast. My name is Joe Thomas. I'm the Echo's Everton FC reporter. Alongside me in the office here in Liverpool City Centre, we've got Connor O'Neill, my colleague, and then joining us from his own place, we've got Gav Buckland. We're allowed to disclose your location, so so brilliant. Well, I mean, obviously, only one thing to talk about that difficult night on Sunday at Goodison Park. Probably more positives to take from it, I think, than anything else. We'll start with the football, and then we'll go on to the everything else that was around the game. Connor, I mean, how frustrating is it to have a build up like that, and then you see someone like Alejandro Garnacho pull out something like that? I mean, it's just so bloody frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah, I think frustrating is the big word to describe yesterday's match. I think the goal come from nothing, didn't it? I mean, I must admit, it's one of them goals that when it kind of happened live, I thought, wow, but I didn't quite think, wow.
Yeah.
I don't even have seen it more since I got home, and obviously this morning, you think, God, that was a true wonder goal, or one that we'll see for years to come. I think that's the thing that disappointed me most was, I thought, Everton kind of startled a little bit after they fell behind so early on to that wonder goal. It took them a little bit, a while to kind of wake up and get back in the game. Then obviously they had that kind of 15-20 minute spell before the end of the first half where they were well on top and should have at least been level. If you look at the chances that Everton had, they should have at least been level. The only thing that worried me was that it felt a little bit more like Luton in the second half, where they ran out of ideas very quickly. They would just to pump a long, hopeless balls forward that, if I'm being honest, didn't really test ice. And I think it was quite telling that, I think it was, after United went 3-0 up and Onana made his first real save of the game. And that was what worried me most a little bit, because I thought there's still a vulnerability side to Everton here where they quite don't know how to chase a game. I think they run out of ideas very quickly. And also, I think when you look at the bench, because obviously there was no better yesterday, but Sean Dyche didn't really have much to choose from. And when you look at the options they brought on, I thought Dan Juma was really frustrating when he come on. He didn't really get into the game, and everything he did try to come off. But yeah, so it was a real frustrating evening, I think, in terms of football-wise for Everton. And probably one that come at the worst possible time, because I think after the build-up and the 10-point deduction, and we'll be honest, results on Saturday not exactly going in Everton's favour. When we were at Turf Moor, kind of falling away the Blues, Everton kind of needed to get 3 points yesterday just to give themselves, a little bit more breathing space in terms of closing the gap. Instead, it was a basically frustrating night. Now we're up to 5 points, and people I think are starting to feel a little bit nervous.
Gav, do you think that's a fair assertion from Connor to be a bit disappointed with the reaction to the goal? Because obviously, a goal like that, a goal however it would have been scored it at that time in those circumstances, was always going to knock Everton for six a little bit and take a little bit of time to recover. But one of the things that, it was notable that they took time to recover, that it took another 10-15 minutes to get into that game. But once they did, we did see that pattern of them creating lots of chances, 24 shots in the end, some really good chances within there. I mean, do you think that that's a criticism too far, or do you think that, there's only so much you can do sometimes? And actually they responded, once they got their heads together, they responded quite well, created all those chances. And obviously, the issue is less the response and more just the fact that they failed to score, which is an issue, of course, but it's a different kind of argument.
No, I think I would even say the response I did from the start. I felt that we allowed United to play without real pressure. Didn't mean their finals, in their back third, as it were. I mean, we didn't really press the ball at all, and it was only sort of after 10-15 minutes when we started doing that. United, we're not the greatest at playing at the back. They're not Man City, are they, or even Brighton, or dare I say Liverpool. And as soon as we started pressurising them, the shift in the game changed, didn't it, really? And I thought, from that point, as Connor said, from 20 minutes in, we played further up the pitch, and we were clearly the better team. And I'd actually disagree. We should, with Connor saying we obviously go in for a draw, we should have gone in winning, shouldn't we, really? We created, there's an argument to say, we created 4 or 5 good chances. Calvert-Lewin had a couple, Garner Gay had one, Decore had one, the one cleared off the line. And we created lots and lots of chances without really, without really convincing over the game. That'd be the if you go beyond the first half, I think we as you say, it tailed off. It had like similarities, didn't it, to the Fulham game particularly.
Which did you think was the best chance, Connor? For me, I think it was the Decore one. You know, he was central. He had a little bit of time at the goal, go either side. To not get that on target was frustrating.
Yeah, the Corey one is the one I think where you think you've got to hit the back of the net.
Yeah.
I thought Calvert-Lewin's done better with the header like we're over as well. So usually we got that least on target.
Which one, from the young cross or the guy in the corner?
The young cross, yeah. He kind of got up well, got across the man.
Good cross.
It kind of felt like he'd done everything right, bar, get a bit of the right direction on the header. But yeah, the Corey one for me was the one where you're thinking, especially that one as well, was at 5 minutes before half time. If that goes in, Goodison's going to be up off its feet. You know, Everton could be a little bit in the ascendancy, and instead it rolls the wrong side of the post. And yeah, that's what Gav's saying. But yeah, I think there's a Corey one is the one chance where you think if that goes in, it could have been a different ball game.
I have sympathy with what Gav's saying about being disappointed from the start. You know, we got one of our colleagues, Matt Jones, and he does. He speaks on a podcast called The Blue Room, and I listened to that last night. And he was saying that he was actually disappointed about it, and even before they conceded the goal. And I actually agreed with him on that, because I thought that first 90 seconds, opportunity to, the fans had done so well to set the tone in the atmosphere for the players, and they just seemed a little bit off it and a little bit cautious. And it was just peculiar because even before that first goal, Andre and I was having a lot of time on the ball. And obviously they had their young debutant in centre midfield, Kobe Mainu, and he just looked like an absolute baller. Everton allowed him to look like a baller, and I always wondered there's a little bit of naivety in there, because obviously we know that part of the frustration, I think, in that result and the performance is the fact that, and certainly at the start, we know that there's a fragility to that Manchester United side, but we also know that the stats say that they're the form team in the league, and I wonder if there was a little bit of naivety there. I wonder if there was a little bit of an oversight in that. It was almost as if they were happy for Onana to have the ball. And one of the problems that with that thought process, I think, is that he is a goalkeeper that's been brought into Manchester United because of his ball playing ability. And okay, he's had a very difficult start to his Manchester United career, but that's largely been around his shot stopping. And if you're going to give him the time to do that, and particularly you're going to give him someone like a mobile number 6 who's happy to come drop short, split the centre backs, take the ball, face his own goal and turn. All of a sudden, whilst Calvert-Lewin and Decore are very good at pressing, Everton's midfield, there tends to be a bit of a distance between the midfield and the attack. So if it then becomes 3-on-2 defensively in Man United's favour, well, every time they're going to break free, and every time they're going to end up in that position where all of a sudden they're 30 yards from their own goal, facing Everton's goal with time and space around them. And it really is a bit frustrating. I mean, what do you think, Cod? Things could so easily have turned out very differently if an absolute wonder goal doesn't get scored. And even after that goal gets scored, things could turn out very, very differently if one of those 3 or 4 really good chances gets taken. And then Everton have that goal and the momentum of the crowd behind them going into one each half time and building on that. I mean, do you think there was a little bit of naivety there?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of naivety and a lack of tempo and pace. Like, there seemed to be no agency about Everton at the start. It was a bit almost lackadaisical, and I don't know whether we underestimated United a little bit as well. We thought, United are quite not going to be the force that they want to play, and we can just get at these even on a good run of form. The crowd's going to be behind us. Just what disappointed me as well, yesterday was the 2 wingers I thought looked quite poor.
Okay.
I don't think much. Obviously McNeil came off, and I don't think much kind of worked for Harrison every time he tried to do something. I don't think it really come off. And I think what we've seen in recent weeks is that our wide plays are kind of crucial to a lot of how good we can be attacking from an attack point of view. So he's getting balls into the box and stuff like that. I don't think we've kind of done that enough. I don't think we really put United. We played into United's hands essentially from an attack point of view. Like I say, pumping long, hopeless balls forwards is food and drink from Maguire and Lindelof. They didn't really get tested enough. But I think as well, on top of that, I think we missed Onana a little bit as well in midfield for Everton. And I think, we missed that kind of his ability to drive us 20 yards up the pitch and get us up. I think, Idrissa Gueye done well in recent weeks when he's come in, but his tendency to want to sit deep sometimes means that with the back 4 go and sit that little bit deeper, which means we don't get up the pitch and massive gaps start to be created, which is what we saw at times during the first half. I just used a lot about yesterday in terms of how we start and stuff like this. I just thought we didn't really have that bit of oomph that I think everyone expected. And I think, we paid the price tax obviously before, be honest, with Wonderful, but then straight away you're chasing the game then, and like we've seen in the Premier League, it's tough to chase games.
I mean, as good a goal as that was, I think this is probably a mark of perhaps where the mindsets are at. When the ball went in, as improbable as it was that he scored it, I mean, there was part of me that was almost expecting, and as I saw him shaping, I was thinking, this is going to go in, isn't it? You just, Everton at a minute, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. Like, the club is cursed, and that one, the goal just shows it, I think. What do you think, Gav? What were you thinking when he was taking lift off there 3 minutes in?
Probably something similar to yourself. I mean, you had quite a good view of it. It was a fantastic goal. Funny enough, he's talking about the best goals I've ever seen at Goodison on Saturday night, and that's definitely up there by anybody, Everton or otherwise. And yeah, and I think it just took the sting out of the occasion, didn't it? Really, I thought we spoke about on Friday that the crowd had a big part to play in terms of pushing the players on Sunday, and that sort of burst the balloon, didn't it? Quite early on, and what can go wrong does go wrong. It's like guaranteed that Anthony Martial's going to score against us, isn't it? Really, there's guaranteed there's going to be a VAR penalty, and that was in, and it was the timing of it, and also the timing of the penalty as well in the second half when he's just coming up back off half time. So in some respects, their first 2 goals had similar effects on the half that follows, really. And as you say, he won't score a better goal than that in his career, will he?
No, that's it. I mean, probably one of only a handful of other people can say the same, Darren Fletcher being among them. But I was actually at Old Trafford when Rooney scored the bicycle kick against Manchester City, kind of alluding back to what I just said in the previous kind of submission, was when Rooney scored that goal, there was almost like a split second where it took everybody almost needed to regather themselves to just compute what had happened. It's like, what has everybody just seen there? As I say, at Goodison Park yesterday, I think almost as soon as he was shaping it up, people just assume it was going to happen because you just assume the worst with Everton. Gav, I'll just come back to you just on the penalty. Again, Connor said earlier about the disappointing performance in the second half. I do agree with him. It was another second half display where the steam quickly kind of evaporated from Everton. It didn't look like it had an idea. How much of that do you think is just it's less about the squad and its ability and the tactics, and it's more just about if a decision like that goes against you, and I'm not saying it wasn't a penalty, because I think it was a penalty, but how much of it is that just an inevitable product of just a big moment going against you so early in the second half?
Yeah, going back to the Garnacho goal, it was an easy cross, wasn't it? It was a Darlow we very easy, wasn't it, to get on that in and round the back of us on the left hand side. So that was a great goal. We could have stopped it, couldn't we? That was a disappointing thing. For the penalty, it goes against it, or is it just people, not being good enough on the big moments? And Young, it's probably not uncoincidental that in some of the big games this season, Young's been at fault, hasn't he, at crucial times, and you saw that again on Sunday. Perhaps lucky to stay on the pitch as well, would you believe? But I thought it was a penalty. If you see it, I think it was just a foolish challenge. That said, I mean, United in the second half a few times were quite, found it easy to play the ball into the middle of our defence, wasn't it? From the outside the area, he did that for the third goal. So, yeah, you could say it's fate and it's the wrong time to concede the goal, but ultimately it's just a bad decision by Ashley Young, isn't it, for a player of his experience? But goes back to what we say, he had a yellow card in the Young, bit like at Anfield, and we can talk about right backs all day long, and we have done on the pod a couple of weeks, so you and I, Joe, and some of it's down maybe our lack of options.
I think it's I think he was very lucky not to get sent off. I spoke to Sean Dyche after the game, and he was complaining about the VAR intervention, but I think his complaint was more about the process rather than the decision itself. I mean, he would only go as far as to say he thought it was a contentious decision. I can understand where he's saying in terms of, he was told that the on-field referees were supposed to have the dominant say, and clearly there's still a case of them being sent back to a screen and told what to do, because I think he reiterates this point, repeats it a lot, but you very rarely see someone go to a monitor and then not change their decision. So that process is an interesting one. But if I'm being perfectly honest, I thought Everton were lucky the decision wasn't given in the first instance. I think if it was, Ashley Young would have had a second yellow card and he would be off. It was quite interesting. Even after he got that reprieve, as John Brooks was on the penalty spot sorting that out with Rashford, so Young marched over towards him. It was actually Harry Maguire that stepped in and pulled him back, and I think Harry Maguire probably saved him from a red card. But I mean, the situation right back has been an interesting one. One of the few places that's probably open for debate all season, Connor. Young doesn't help himself for all his experience by getting these early yellow cards, and he is starting to show a history of perhaps making questionable decisions, big moments in games. Is now the time to maybe try something different? Is part one of this question, and part two is, does the return of Seamus Coleman to the matchday squad give Dyche an opportunity to make that change but still save face? Because if it was Patterson coming in, there might have been an acknowledgement that he should have come in earlier. But with Coleman coming in fresh, he can say, well, this was always the plan and the club captain's back.
Yeah, I mean, going back to Young just to start with, he was actually lucky in the first half because Martial tackles Martial and John Brooks waves play on. Now, really, he should have probably booked Martial. There's either a dive or it's a foul.
Yeah.
But he waved play on.
Yeah.
Listen, now, really, Young probably should have been sent off there because it was a clumsy challenge. I thought he was a very lucky man there. I think I tweeted saying, I'm not sure how long Young can actually stay on the pitch here. So history did unfortunately repeat itself. Not that he was sent off like he's at Anfield, but he made a bad call. But
it's just it's strange because normally, one thing that Ashley Young has done a lot of during his short Everton career is picked up early yellow cards. And normally you said a problem with it getting an early yellow card is it then inhibits you going forward because then you're more cautious the rest of the game. And in fact, what we're seeing from Young is, I mean, that aggression clearly isn't being tempered, is it?
Yeah. No, and I think if anything, he probably gets worse once he gets the early booking.
Because that second booking on Diaz at Anfield, I mean...
Yeah. I mean, there's no complaints, is there? And like I say, if he got sent off yesterday, you can't have any complaints.
No.
I think going back to the right-back question, I think we're about to get a full picture of where Sean Dyche sees Nathan Patterson more than anything from all this, because if Seamus Coleman comes straight back in, maybe not next week, but the week after, perhaps Chelsea, 3 games time. If Seamus Coleman is back starting then ahead of Patterson, then I think, we'll see a full picture that Sean Dyche doesn't clearly fancy Nathan Patterson. He's got concerns around starting Nathan Patterson. But I think from what we've seen so far this season, I think Seamus Coleman's return can't come quick enough for Everton at right back, to be honest, because I think it's a problem area. I don't think Young and Patterson have covered themselves in glory for when they'd be given the chance this season at right back.
You say that you were very harsh in your player ratings about Patterson at West Ham.
Well, some think I was harsh from a grace, so we're meant to differ. But no, I just think neither of them have done enough to nail down a place to not prevent Coleman from coming back in. And I think it's quite interesting as well, is that, all these years on, and we always seem to have this discussion every year, that even now we're still sitting there, and we've been sitting there for weeks saying, well, when Coleman's back fit, he'll come back in. The man's, 34, and I mean, and we're still sat there saying, well, he'll come back in. The fact that we're still doing that speaks volumes, doesn't it, for the position? We're still relying on him. I know he brings a lot. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic captain and stuff like that. But, it's also the fact that he's probably the best right back at the club still at his age now.
Yeah, well, he's 35 now. I mean, this is very much a live question because we already have spoken a lot about in recent weeks about the transition that's going to be within that squad this summer. But obviously both, as it stands, Coleman and Ashley Young will both be out of contract going into the summer. So if Sean Dyche genuinely doesn't see a future or doesn't want to use Nathan Patterson, then all of a sudden it becomes another area where you have to start looking at thinking, well, that's going to have to be addressed in a transfer window, which, regardless of what happens with the takeover, probably still be a transfer window on a budget. So
I think it's about just on Young. It's probably a case of a little bit of his age. He's obviously 38, where perhaps his head thinks he can still sit through certain things and make certain challenges, where his body quite not the pace it used to be at. And age perhaps maybe caught up for him a little bit in that sense, and we see that type of the Clumsy challenge yesterday, for instance, is maybe one way in his head he's thinking, I can make that, I can get there, where his body just doesn't quite have the same speed that it wants to.
Which is a problem, though, when you're bringing in partly or mainly your main attribute from that you're asking for him is his experience, because his experience should override that emotional, I can still do this.
Yeah.
And if it's not, then that's an issue. And and I think we've said this before, like with the right back situation, it's great to have experience there, but Everton isn't a club that is short of of experienced Premier League fullbacks who can give advice to the players around them, because obviously, as well as having Seamus Coleman, you've got Leighton Baines there in the under-18, so you're in a situation where you have two of probably the best fullbacks of Premier League history already within that club. So Young's experience shouldn't necessarily be a defining feature in him being there and get the game. It should be what he's able to do on the pitch. And I think increasingly we're seeing that maybe he just needs to be taken out of the firing line a little bit. But he has had a difficult few weeks on that front, hasn't he? Gav, we obviously we started off talking about the football, but I think that what's important to acknowledge from yesterday, and that this changes regardless, this doesn't change due to the results, is this was a game that was this was an event rather than a football match, and the more important thing probably went on around the game. I saw you there yesterday. You were there nice and early. You would have seen some of what went on outside the stadium. You would have seen a lot of what went on inside the stadium. I mean, when it got to that last 20 minutes before kickoff, and then obviously you had the Premier League anthems. I mean, how did you feel? What was your emotion seeing such a display of organised unity as that which was put on yesterday?
Yeah, admiration and pride are the two words that use. Admiration for the time that people have taken out and the hard work to prepare everything for the game, and pride that of Evertonians sort of uniting to sort of fight what they think is an unjust decision, regardless of whether you think that, whether you think the decision how it was reached and whether it's fair or not is not really the point here, is it? It's just the process in itself, and also as well that it was, as far as I'm aware, done in a very well mannered and not in a threatening manner as well. So pride and admiration I think would be the two words to use, Joe, and in that context, like going back to what we started the pod with, that early goal sort of put that fire out in it really. But I mean, I think you can sometimes football fans generally can be criticised and stuff, but you see that yesterday, and that's it's wondrous, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen that much booing. I've seen plenty of booing at Goodison over the years. I don't think I've seen any boos that loud in my life, both before the game and during it after 10 minutes. And even the poor fellas who brought the Premier League stand on got booed, didn't he? And I wasn't there fight probably. So it was. But I think it'd be that, and the fact that it all went off, peacefully, and it was just a shame. Perhaps, I mean, there is a conversation to actually think that all that noise, for one, Dice's favourite phrase, literally around the ground before and after the game, whether that affected the players' performances, were they affected by the occasion? And it's an interesting aspect to it, perhaps. But I thought the supporters did a wonderful job yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, it really was. Con, obviously, you were sat next to me. As those players came out, all the purple placard, pink placards with the corrupt sign on got held up, and we had all the banners on the Gladys Street. I mean, it really was an assault on the senses, wasn't it? And it was a kind of that cauldron of emotional intensity that few other grounds and few other, if any, fan bases can provide.
Yeah, I think what we saw is that Everton fans have the ability to come together and unite and get their message, what they want to get out there across. Because obviously, it was a lot of work went into that. I think we've got to give credit to 1878 who done an absolute superb job in organised it all and making sure it was done properly, and everyone knew what they were doing. It was an organised protest, and which was military precision in the way it was the way it come together. It was a real show of defiance, wasn't it, more than anything? And I think it was a real kind of, we're not taking this line down. Obviously, last season myself and you and Chris covered a lot of the pre-match protest march, Easter boards and the figures at the football club, and they obviously attracted huge numbers, but nothing on the scale of what we saw yesterday. I think every man and his dog. I mean, there's probably people in Goodison outside the Pullman County Road who weren't going to the match but just come along to show their support and their defiance. And obviously, when you see that the players come out and everyone holds up, I think that everybody held one of them placards up. No one kind of, was turning their back or, that's not for me. Everyone was united as one, and it was a real show of defiance. And, I think we've all said this, but, the Premier League, if they didn't know it already, know that they picked on the wrong club to make a point.
Yeah, that's it. And
I think this will be the start as well, won't it? I don't think this is, one thing I think about, because I've seen a few fans saying, that'll be it now, but, I truly think this will be the start now. We're going to see more of this over the coming weeks. This is just the beginning of these protests and people making the point and showing real, together and unity. So I think it's going to be an interesting few weeks more, because I think more will come of it as the appeal goes on. But for starters, it was absolutely superb. And you just felt sorry in the end for certainly the people involved in 1878 that they didn't get the result that they quite clearly wanted or deserved for their efforts.
Yeah, I was there early doors as people listening on Friday probably anticipated. I was in and around Goodison before 12 o'clock, just kind of full of that nervous anticipation, because what's going to it's going to be a momentous day. And just speaking to like Dave Kelly from the Fan Advisory Board, Katie Carter from the 1878 and the build up, the work that they did was absolutely incredible, and there really is some achievement to organise basically to organise 35,000 people in in an orchestrated, unified protest less than pretty much a week's notice. It's just incredible, and fair play to them. And I think that has to be the message that we take from yesterday, both on and off the pitch. I think that Deitch had a degree of merit when he was saying it was a tough one to judge the game yesterday, because I think that second goal comes at a bad time. It is a mistake from Ashley Young, takes the wind out of the sails, but Everton did more than enough to be going into that game level at half time. And they should, and it's a recurring issue. It's an issue that needs to be addressed. One, taking those chances in more games. This is a club that creates chances, and it is a team that scores goals. We saw 3 at Brentford, 3 at Palace, 2 at Sheffield United, 3 against Bournemouth, 2 at Villa. This club can score goals. We know that. Where it probably needs to its work refined a little bit is scoring goals in the right moments, because it's clear that first goal is absolutely integral to any Everton game they play. And if they score, they tend to go on and win. If they don't, they tend to go on and lose. And the home form has to be improved. Like there was a cushion. They were surviving on their away form previously, and that was okay. But now it's not with this 10-point deduction. But I think on the pitch, there are elements of the reaction that you can take and say, well, this is an Everton side that is a bit stronger than it has been in previous years. And I think the fan base, certainly gives everybody a source of comfort and strength going forward. So obviously that's going to remain there. And while they're united, then that is real. Everton will be greater than the sum of its parts, because it has that extra layer of support and drive and intensity behind it. My match report was based on what you just said there, Connor, yesterday, just how there will be fans of other clubs that will say, that'll be the end of the protests, and you've already lost a game, you're going to struggle this season. But nothing was ever going to be solved yesterday. Yesterday was only ever going to be the beginning of the protest. It could never be the end. And I think that has to be remembered, because I think they'll be useful going forward. And Connor, it's for all that, it does add a little bit of pressure on the Forest game on Sunday, and obviously we'll speak more in depth about that on Friday. But December does look a little bit more awkward, doesn't it? I think
everyone's got a little bit more nervous, haven't they? I think after that, I think there was a bit. I was always a little bit nervous, if I'm being honest. I think from when the 10 points got deducted, because I don't think it was ever going to be as swimmingly as we'll just pick up more wins and we'll get out and thought, if we get points back, it'll move us further to the table. Whereas ever that simple when it comes to Everton Football Club, for starters. That's true.
As I wrote yesterday, fairy tales don't get written in royal blue ink at the moment.
No, they certainly don't. Not at the moment, only last how many years. But no, I think now there's a little bit more nervousness, because I think people look at the fixture list and thinking, well, we probably need to get something from Forest. We probably need to beat one of Newcastle and Chelsea in their back-to-back home games in the space of 4 days. We probably need to beat Burnley away, if we're being brutally honest, because that's probably one of the away games where you think, well,
they've lost every home game so far, haven't they? So
you don't really want to be still neck and neck with them when they get their first win and have the chance to leapfrog in the table. Then obviously you're heading into Christmas week and forming the Carabao Cup, Tottenham away, Man City at home, Wolves away before the year's out. You look and think, well, that's actually not an easy run of fixtures. And also as well, I think, mentally, I know the players come out and spoke about it and, said that, it was against the Wales and we want to beat the fight back. But I don't know whether just, from a mentality and mental point of view, that 10 points just took your sail out of the winds a little bit. And it's certainly hurt and left a few players reeling and perhaps, thinking, well, we shouldn't really be in this position.
Probably a few players probably like most of the fans, probably like us, where 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, I was looking forward to a busy December that I thought was going to be about the football that was on the pitch.
Yeah.
These great experiences of games against Chelsea and Newcastle, and then trips to Spurs, where you could go and play with a little bit of freedom because the pressure to get results wasn't on there, and you could really see where Everton were in their kind of their progress against sides that they want to try and catch up with. And obviously I was looking forward to Fulham as well, thinking cup game, good opportunity there. And now all of a sudden I just feel like Forest will be a very difficult game, and then it'll go into Newcastle and Chelsea. I feel like it's inevitable that December is going to be a very difficult month. And it always was going to be a difficult month. And I think we've always said that. With the amount of times we mentioned December so far this season already, it's been a lot. There's no lack of awareness there. But where I feel for the players is, and where I feel for the fan base, and almost selfishly I feel for likes of myself and you, Connor, is that what Everton done it hadn't been a perfect start to the season, but by going and getting those 3 wins in London, by going and getting those 14 points on the board, that 8-point buffer to the relegation zone, they've given themselves the protection, the cushion, which meant that results weren't the be-all and end-all in December. Now there's a pressure on them to try and get out of the situation as quickly as possible, so that the danger is that if they don't, it becomes us against the world versus the world against us. And that's just where I'm a little bit worried. But I'm still confident Everton are going to stay up. I just think I think last night was a reminder that we're probably going to have a few more sleepless nights than we'd like to because of this deduction.
I think it's a mentality thing as well, isn't it? Because they've probably gone from where they was after the Palace game, hence the November international break, think about, we can just go every 1 or 2 games, every 2 days picking up points, keep ourselves ticking over, get to January, we will come through a tough Christmas period, we'll probably still be maybe, 10 to 12, 13, but enough to keep us ticking over, enough to keep a bit of a buffer between the relegation zone. Heading into the new year, maybe 1 or 2 bodies in January if they've got the scope to do that. And then maybe just think, just keep plodding along, building, not getting sucked in. Now all of a sudden we're in a position where we're playing catch up, and very quickly we could be playing catch up at an alarm pace because it's gone from 2 to 5 already.
Yeah, Birmingham, Sheffield United play each other next week. Yeah,
on Saturday evening it could be 7, 8 at the worst, but it could be 6, it could be 7, and all of a sudden you're playing catch up now. So you're going into December, which is a busy month with a lot of games against tough opposition, playing catch up, needing to get points on the board. Whereas 2 weeks before that you would think, well, we're in a good position, we can just keep plucking away, pick up points up here and there, win the 3 home games, win one of them, maybe draw one of them, 4 points, win one, draw one away from home in January, December, another 4 points, 8 points if you go into the new year with 8 points, that takes over 20 odd points, will be, okay. Now that's not the case, and obviously now if it could get 8 points in December, it might not even be enough to get them up to bottom 3. So it's a whole mentality shift we think is perhaps a lot bigger than what we all anticipated it being.
Yeah, Gav, I mean, what did the Man United result, let's say result rather than necessarily performance, what did that do for your sense of perspective of all things Everton at this present moment in time?
The perspective is, just 2 weeks ago we were 8 points away from the relegation zone, and now we're 5 points from the
safety.
That's a 13-point swing, isn't it, in a fortnight? And what I'm concerned a little bit, and this will play out, I think, over time, is how this just affects the players, not just last week when the news was given, but just going forward. Will some players be motivated by this? Will some players be demotivated by this? We've got players in the last year of the contract. Will Dyson's powers of trying to inspire the team? Because if you're at the bottom of the league and it's your fault, that's one thing, isn't it? When the manager's talking to you, isn't it? You've got us in this position, all that type of stuff. You need to get us out. If Dice starts going at the players, looking at the bottom of the league, you need to sort this out. The players could turn around and say, well, it's not our fault. That we've been docked 10 points. And that's a slightly different conversation, isn't it? So it does, you may find that it may change the dynamics between the manager and players, this penalty. Because ultimately, and as we've said this before, it's not. I know some of the players have been responsible for previous relegation battles, and perhaps some clubs would argue that shouldn't be there. They're at Everton now. It's not their fault, is it? It's not Dyche's fault. But the relationship between the manager and player might shift slightly because of this. Because maybe he can't point the finger at the players for underperforming when you're bottom of the table, like say last season. Or say Lampard spoke about it the season before, didn't he? Dyche can't say that, can he?
No.
Because we're here because we're being penalised 10 points, and it's not their fault. They've probably got a sense of injustice. So the management's a thing. I think it's a key thing here going forward, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because it's an unnatural position to be in, isn't it? Really, as a club, as has been pointed out before many times, it's the worst penalty in top flight history, whatever. And I think we may not see the impact of it for a while yet. And that would be interesting.
A lot of uncertainty as well, isn't it? Because obviously the club will appeal, and we don't know what the outcome of the appeal is going to be. They might get 4 or 5 points back. You don't know. It just seems very. I think, like anything in life, isn't it? If there's uncertainty around issues, it doesn't help, does it? It doesn't help.
Connor, we could have like 3 different points totals this season, shouldn't we? The normal points total starts with it. Then one that's got 10 points deducted, then one that's hopefully say got like 5 points deducted. Well, that doesn't help anybody, does it? I said last week, didn't I? I said last week.
It's an interesting point. Is that this appeal process is going to be really interesting, because nothing has been quick about this process just yet. But again, I mean, we've used this word so much in the past 10 days, but for the integrity of the competition, surely the appeal process needs to be completed before the January transfer window begins. Because we've seen, and I haven't looked at this properly, but I think this is the case. Certainly in the case of Luton and Sheffield United, it looks like they've gone through the come up, and their idea has been to go, you know what? We've come up earlier than we expected to do it, so in our cycles, and we're not going to fall into the trap of spending big to chase the survival. It isn't really open to us because of the gap between us and survival. But that might change quite considerably if they think, or if they know that Everton are going to have minus 10 points. All of a sudden, if you're looking at a Luton side that would have got that win the other day and still be in the relegation zone, going, yeah, you know what, we're going to pick up nice wins every now and then, we're going to have good days, let's just enjoy them, to going, well, you know what, or maybe only 2 or 3 more of these surprise wins might actually be the difference between staying us up and all the rewards that then you get through that. Same with Everton. I don't think Everton are going to have a particularly big pot to spend in January. And obviously, I don't think that changes if they get taken over. But if there's any uncertainty there, then that won't help. But again, if there's a little bit of spare money flying around, which there was at the back end of the January transfer window last year after Anthony Gordon got sold, well, if they were mid-table, it might have been a case of, you know what, we don't need anything urgent. We'll save that money for summer, for when we're having this rebuild. Now all of a sudden it might be, have a difficult January, 5, 6, 7 points from safety. Might go. Obviously, we know Farwell is someone who's cautious when it comes to trying to bring players into the club, but there might be a case of saying, well, maybe we do need to spend some of this money, and all of a sudden you might end up as likes of Burnley or Luton and even Everton, just starting to gamble or make big financial decisions that will have implications on them in the long term based on something that might change if this appeal process goes on beyond January. I can imagine if Luton go and spend £30 million, I've seen it would happen. Imagine if they went and spent the £30 million in January that they didn't spend in the summer because they thought there was no points, because they think that they're going to stay up with Everton on minus 10, and then halfway through next year, or they say we get to April and all of a sudden Everton get 6 of those points back and Luton go down. There's a lot of stake here, isn't there?
There is, but I also think as well it's the case of Michael Ball, our columnist, said this last week about the 10-point deduction probably give them from Everton moving down there that little bit more hope.
Well, that's it. And as a result of that, they might spend the money which they might not be able to afford.
But even like in terms like Saturday, Luton probably we're thinking, well, we were out the bottom three.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and just like in the now, you know, like that belief of like, we're not close adrift, you know, we're not kind of fighting for survival. We can pick up a win and then maybe win again in 2 weeks. That's going to put everyone under real pressure. And all of a sudden, you know, that the relegation fight is a relegation fight. It's not kind of a case of three clubs of the new proto clubs are all going to chase the fourth bottom team down. It's an actual battle in which by Everton they've got to chase the other club. So I think it's like I say, it's all uncertainty. And I think any type of uncertainty in life where people don't know where they stand and what's going on, stuff like that, isn't great, and it doesn't help anyone's kind of mentality or thinking. And obviously at the minute at Everton, there's just uncertainty all over the place, isn't it? You know, whether it be takeover, points deduction. I think a large part like the takeover stuff was being forgotten about. But when it comes to points deduction, it's half the place more because it affects them more than anyone.
Absolutely. Well, on a happy note, we'll
be fishing at the pod.
we'll wrap. Yeah, we say that, but I do think that there are lots more reasons for to be positive than I think you would necessarily think from the headlines of where Everton are right now.
After 3-0 defeat.
Yeah, as I say, I think in the performance and certainly in relation to what the fans did, there is a greater resilience going into what could be this relegation battle than there have been in the last two. This is a club that's faced adversity and overcome it in recent seasons while still being relatively fractured. Now it's a unified force, so hopefully it can overcome the problems it's now beset by, and hopefully as quickly as possible. So we'll try and leave it on a little bit more upbeat note there before Gav comes in and says something to take the wind out of my sails. But we've been the Royal Blue Podcast, everyone. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks for bearing with us. I'm not sure if the signal's been particularly good during this episode, but if you've made it this far, thank you ever so much. And we'll be with you later on in the week. Thank you.